And I have to say, Mississippi State's going to have to just move over for a minute because there are other national champs in this state. I'm talking about the Mississippi Wheelcats. They are now national champions as of 2021. They are the only youth wheelchair basketball team in our state that competes in the National Wheelchair Basketball League, and they came home number one. And joining me in studio, if you are watching over at supertalk.fm/watch, you will see I have several of the players and the coach with me. I've got Phillip, who is 12. What position do you play, Phillip?
I play shooting guard.
Shooting guard. Don't know what that means, but sounds fun. We have Coach Dwight, who's also dad to Phillip, and then we have John Matthew, who is 17. What position do you play?
Point guard, I guess.
Don't know what that means either, but sounds awesome.
We're kind of a positionless basketball team. That's why they're like, oh, what am I?
Oh, what are they? Well, you could have said anything, and I'd have been like, good for you. Basketball is just not necessarily a sport that I know much about, but I know what number one means, and that means that you guys went and you conquered and you came home the winners. So, Dwight, tell us a little bit about the Mississippi Wheelcats. It sounds like a very special organization.
It is. We had some special people several years ago, back around 2013. The Elliston family, who came to Mississippi and started this program through My Wheels that kind of sponsors the Wheelcats team. And it's for children with lower limb disabilities that it in any way hampers their mobility. So that they can get out there, play sports and other activities like any other kids their age. And it has allowed a lot of families. I couldn't begin to list how many because I wasn't around at the beginning. We came in about 4 years ago in 2017 and started playing with the team. I think John Matthew and the Davis family, they started close to the beginning, if not at the beginning, with their younger level. He was much younger then. Yeah. But it gives these kids who, either can't run and jump and function the way maybe some other kids can. They do have the ability, though, to play a competitive sport and learn the camaraderie of a team and to grow in their athletic ability, grow in their social circle, and just learn things that most kids get to do here in the South, and playing sports and learning what a team is like, learning how to function within a group, and it just provides some awesome opportunities for a lot of kids.
So, John Matthew, how old were you when you joined the Mississippi Wheelcats?
I don't really know. I can't remember how old I was.
See, doing the math real quick.
Saying you're 8.
I was 8.
You're
yes,
8. So what was it like to finally play sports and be part of a team? Or there at 8, I guess, but 8 years old is about the age that most kids start to do rec team or get, on their first little t-ball or whatever it may be. So what was it like at 8 to be able to get to play sports?
Awesome, because every day I would wake up and realize I'm in a wheelchair and I can't do anything. And I see all these other kids playing outside. Kind of made me upset, but I got over it. And then my cousin mentioned his neighbor behind him has starting a basketball team, and that's when it all started. And
had you ever thought about basketball before?
No, ma'am.
Did you know anything about basketball before?
No, ma'am.
Good deal. No, but it just goes to show when you are introduced to something new, you can catch on quick, and we all are novice or beginners at something, right, Dwight? So how was your family's journey into it with Phillip?
Well, we were blessed to run into their that kind of exhibition game. At the time, we lived in North Mississippi, and that's the beauty of this team, is that being the only one in the state, we do try to reach out and pull from kind of all corners because we have to make up enough people for a team. But we were living in North Mississippi at the time. They were playing an exhibition game at the Itawamba Agricultural High School against the local sheriff and police departments, kind of just doing a little fundraiser that day, kind of getting some awareness out to the local community. And a friend of ours said, "Hey, have y'all heard of this?" I'm like, no, we had no idea it was out there. Didn't know they existed. Being this, we were about 2.5, 3 hours away, and we went up there. A friend of Phillip's he had met at a wheelchair hunting event had kind of reached out to us, and so he went up there and met Nash Bennett, who we actually lived close to but didn't know each other for a long time. And through that, we met the team and started looking for opportunities to find a way to make it down here for practices. At the time, Phillip he loved baseball. That was his favorite thing. And so getting in the car, going home after watching these kids play ball, we had a conversation like, Phillip, you think you want to give this a try? Because he likes being competitive at just about anything. And he was just like, and he's never about anything. And he's like, well, I can't get the ball to the hoop, so I don't really know if I want to try this or not. And I was like, well, dude, just practice.
Well, not everybody gets the ball to the hoop anyway. There's got to be people who get the ball to the person who gets the ball to the hoop, and they're very important.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And so he worked on that, practiced hard, and started meeting the team, getting better, and just like that with a lot of other younger people, and just like with John Matthews starting, he was about 8 years old. And we're thankful, though, that we've been developing at different times, depending on how many kids we have. 13 and down actually play on an 8.5-foot goal. So it's not like the little kids have to get it all the way to the 10-foot goal. They have an opportunity to play more of a kind of a prep level for younger kids. And then as time goes by and they get older, stronger, they can move up to the regulation 10-foot goal, just like all the other kids.
I was going to ask for at least the national champ team. I mean, you have Phillip, who's 12. You have John Matthew, who is 17. I saw the picture. They're there together. So that seems like a big age difference. Are you able to sort of pull your best players to play that way? I mean, that's normally how like a national championship team works, right? Except the age difference.
It is. The beauty of the NWBA, National Wheelchair Basketball Association, is that they have a grading system, and this is a good example here. Phillip, in the juniors, there's two numbers, a J1 and a J2. And as they get up to the adult level, they can go from actually a 1.0 to a 4.5, and they have a little complicated thing to get into there. But basically, what your ability to control your body because of whatever disability you may have will determine whether or not at a 1 level, you're not quite as able to control your body the same way. Where at the 2 level, like John Matthew, he has a pretty good control now, currently, through what he's been through to give a lot better control in the chair. And so with that, our team is limited at how many points you can put on the floor at one time. So it's good to have 2s and 1s that you intermingle to make up your team. And so for us, though, here in Mississippi, we are a smaller bunch. We know teams from Dallas and Atlanta and even Alabama that they may field 2 teams. And have like an A and a B team where we just kind of have to put all our eggs in one basket and do what we can. Our first year when we came in, Phillip, he had to play at the varsity level with the big kids and try to make it up to the 10-foot goal because we just only had so many. We didn't have enough of the younger ones to make up 2 teams.
What was that like, Phillip? Were you up for the challenge?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, put me in, coach. I can totally do it. Did you ever get to make a goal?
Yes.
That first year? What was that like?
Not the first year. I got really close the first year. But the second year, I finally started gradually going up and up.
Up and up? What was it like when you scored your first goal? Exciting.
Very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Did your parents go crazy on the sidelines? Because that's me. I'm that parent. And then my kid's like, Mom, sit back down. But it's a big deal. You got to do, you sort of accomplished something. I want to ask you, John Matthew, I mean, now that you're 17, you've been doing it since you're 8. Do you feel like having the Mississippi Wheelcats has strengthened you in the areas for you to move from that 1, I'm going to get the point systems wrong, up to that 2, just to have more control and with your body?
Yes, ma'am.
It's made you sort of a stronger person, I guess, also,
ma'am.
and sort of that stronger athlete. Is that a lot of pressure being considered the 2 on the team?
Not really.
No.
No.
They just get out there and play, huh?
Yeah, he has. John Matthews really handled it well, and looking to him, I mean, obviously, we were proud of a lot of our players this year who accomplished a lot at the National Invitational Tournament. To be able to do what they did, we had a lot of first teamers. We had, I believe, Joel and John Matthew and Nash were our 3 that were our first team all tournament, and John Matthew won the MVP of the tournament.
All right. Well, we're going to find out more about how you won that MVP and more about the Mississippi Wheelcats, who are national champs. Catching up with our other national champs here in Mississippi, we'll have to tell Coach Mike Leach, which he wasn't the baseball coach anyway, to move over because we're we're celebrating some other national champs today here on Good Things, and it's the Mississippi Wheelcats. They are the only wheelchair basketball team in our state that competes in the National Wheelchair Basketball League, and they are the 2021 national champs. And if you're following this story, Dwight, I just love this because this is straight like Mississippi underdog. You have to be a little scrappy to get your teammates from across the state because they are a specific type of athlete. And then you don't have the A team and the B team like some of the other states. So take us through maybe what it took to get the boys to the national level, that national competition, and then maybe walk through what that's like at that competing at that level.
Well, we have to go throughout tournaments in a regular year. Obviously, COVID definitely threw some different kinks in it this season. We delayed our season, but we're often lined up with most high school basketball programs from about October to February and March is our regular season. This year, that all got pushed back to mostly March, April, and May, and then our nationals was in June. So everything got backed up. But in that, typically you have to play in a certain amount of tournaments and at least end up ranked at a certain place to even qualify for any kind of national tournament. And 2 springs ago, rather, kids were on their way to Wichita, Kansas when we all got the calls that everything's shutting down and don't come, we're not going to play. And so just this year, finding gyms that would allow us to practice and getting kids that were willing to try to do safety protocols to make sure we're being safe with everybody's health and still trying to get out and be active was, I think, one of the biggest hurdles. And having just enough people, because while all but one of our players is from Mississippi, we have one from Alabama who in one of the secondary teams in Alabama that they didn't have enough players this year because of all of the restrictions, and so they ended up not fielding a team, and he came and joined us because he can do that. Yeah, we'll take him, and he's willing to travel to do that and stay active. And so we appreciated Dylan coming from Alabama. We'll claim him as a Mississippian this year, and I believe he may come back next year as well. And that's a beautiful thing to just see kids ready to get out of the house, ready to go out, practice, do as best they can, and play a sport while having to wear a mask sometimes, and pushing through all kind of adversity just to play enough games to qualify to go to nationals. And so that was a big hurdle.
So interesting is so much of the story of the Mississippi Wheelcats reads like any other league, right? I mean, there's the adversity, there's the teammates, there's the excitement, and then it gets pulled away. It's all of that. And until you get down and actually watch them play and realize they're in wheelchairs, for the most part, the heart, the competitive edge, the athleticism, all of that is pretty much, equal. And then it just gets down to they play the game maybe a little bit differently. So how does the game sort of work? Phillip, I'll ask you this question. Do you still get to dribble and steal the ball and do all that's normal in basketball, or what's different about it?
Well, the dribbling's kind of different. You only have 2 pushes instead of 2 steps, and then you have to dribble if you don't dribble under those 2 pushes and you push another time, then it's a travel.
Gotcha. Does that take a little patience to figure out, the timing of it all?
I would say so, yeah.
Because if you've ever watched wheelchair basketball, you guys are rough. It is not friendly at all in the best, the best way possible. But you're like any other basketball team. You want to steal the ball. You want to get the ball down the court. So, John Matthew, you're the older one here. At 17, you've been doing this almost a decade now. Do you teach the younger ones how to, I'd say aggressively steal the ball, but that sounds very ungood things. But, how to, take charge and get the ball where it needs to go?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
You got any tricks to that? I don't think you can throw elbows, but...
Oh, no, ma'am.
No, I know you can, but yeah.
They'll sling their chairs around a good bit, though. And it is. It's. I would say it's more of a contact sport than able-bodied basketball because they're allowed. Their chairs are allowed to touch and bump, and it's all about positioning. And now, while there's some of that in able-bodied basketball, the sound of metal scraping and clanking against each other, it definitely just makes for a more physical sounding feel. It's a combination of NASCAR racing, demolition derby, and basketball.
Sounds like a Mississippi Friday night. Sounds like a good time. Okay, Dwight, I know obviously you're vested in the Mississippi Wheelcats because your son Phillip is a athlete there. But I mean, how did you end up coach? Because is it like most of us parents who get into like rec or whatever, and they're like, who can volunteer to coach?
It is. Basketball is near and dear to our family. My wife and I both played in elementary, junior high, and high school. Played rec leagues in college and as a young adult, and just loved it. Dealt with a lot of kids in youth ministry over the years, and just giving them activities to do to play basketball. So it's just what we've done. And then Phillip's older brother started playing basketball, and so it was easy to just go, well, hey, I can do that too. And so through that, we've just had a lot of basketball going on. And then when our founders, the Ellistons, who did a lot of the coaching, I think, early on, before we got there, they moved to Dallas and joined the team out there. And that kind of left a void for parents to have to step up and do like we do, like you said, in rec leagues. We just kind of have to go, okay, who's willing to do this? And
you just sit there and you look around and you're like, chirp, chirp.
Yeah.
Chirp, chirp. Well, okay.
But it as they say, it takes a village. Just because I may be sitting at the end of the bench and calling the timeouts and talking to the kids, all of our parents contribute a lot in planning hotels, making phone calls to register us for tournaments, getting meals together when we're out at a tournament because we're there for a weekend, making phone calls, setting up interviews like this so that we can continue to spread the word that, hey, we're here. If your kid has a lower limb disability and wants to stay active and wants to meet people like them, come join us.
I'm glad you brought that up because the lower limb disability doesn't necessarily mean that they're always in a wheelchair, but they have to play in a wheelchair, though, correct? Because that would be, I would say, dangerous.
It would be.
Like on a whole nother level.
If they weren't in a wheelchair, they would soon have a lower limb disability, being run over and beaten and battered.
So, so that would be something I think that needs to be stressed. If you're listening to Good Things and you have a child, and is this an all-boy team? Or
we are co-ed, and
okay.
The league is co-ed at the prep, which is 13 and down, and also the varsity 13 and up through high school at those levels. When you get to college, they do begin to split off some of girls' teams and guys' teams, and then like we talked about during the break, the Paralympics have men's and women's teams. But they even, at some levels of the adults, they still have co-ed. And that's part of it's just making up numbers as well and making those ones and twos fit into the scoring system so that you have enough people to play. So it is, we're very inclusive as much as we can be within the rules of what you're.
How often do y'all practice?
Typically about once a week. Obviously, we never make every week. We take a Saturday off here and there, but mostly Saturdays at the Healthplex, at the Baptist Healthplex in Clinton, right there on Mississippi College campus, is where we practice. And we're thankful that we can support people who have to come from distance to come to those practices.
And I want to get to that part because athletes get the assistance they need when it comes to the traveling and being part of the Mississippi Wheelcats. And I also want to talk about what's next for your athletes. We've got that and more coming up net. And if you want tickets to come see the Mississippi Wheelcats, when does your next season start, Dwight?
Our next season will start either October or November, depending on which tournaments we get into. But I think the earliest dates have started surfacing in the October month. Haven't nailed that down yet. And that is the beauty of our sport. Except for nationals, I don't think there's any ticket fees anywhere we play throughout the season. And we are aiming at hosting another tournament here in Mississippi. We hosted our first tournament in Mississippi this spring at Jackson Academy. We had 4 teams come from Texas and Alabama and Georgia, and us, the host team. It took me a minute to remember who all came. But that was our first tournament ever, and we hope to host that again this year, and we'll be getting those dates out on our Facebook page and trying to get that word out as soon as we get all the details nailed down.
Man, parents listening to Good Things who have children in travel ball of any kind, whether it's soccer or baseball or softball or basketball or insert ball. I don't know, football travels, but whatever. I mean, it feels like it's a huge extra expense. But oftentimes when you do have children that are also differently abled, there are other expenses that come on sort of on top of that, just in everyday living. So you guys there at the Mississippi Wheelcats make sure that cost is not a hindrance for athletes to be a part of your team, right?
Yes, ma'am, as best we can. And we can't take a lot of credit for it other than paperwork. But we have been able to find and identify some great grants and some wonderful sponsors, whether it's Century Charities at Sanderson Farms or the MDRS grant and the Craig Nielsen grant, and I'm sorry if I left anyone out. I apologize. I'm not in that department. But we have some people that sit down and really work on getting us funding to care for travel. For anyone, I believe it's over 60 miles from our practice facility in Clinton. If you travel over that distance to practice, we'll cover your gas coming and going for practice. And then when we go to tournaments, as long as those funds are available, we cover hotel and meals for both a player and a parent when we go to tournaments. And that, for me, even though I'm a coach, that's the only thing that makes it possible for us as a family
to be able to do
these
and
things.
I hope someone's listening to Good Things, and if you're just tuning in, the Mississippi Wheelcats are Mississippi's only wheelchair basketball team for kids that competes in the National Wheelchair Basketball League, which feeds into Paralympics and all the others that we'll get to. But I want you to hear that these are opportunities no matter where you live in the state. If you've got a child from the ages of what, Dwight?
We've started as low as 5 with younger siblings. Typically, they start around that 7 to 8
all the way
mark.
up to 18. So you're about to age out there, John Matthew.
Yes,
and so, so don't think that. And two, John Matthew, I kind of scratched my head because you walked in here and I was thinking, well, he's not in a wheelchair, but that doesn't mean that he still doesn't fit the criteria to be part of it. You just have to play in one. So I want to make sure we say all that again, because I don't want families to miss out on these opportunities for their kids if they're sitting here listening, man, I wish this was in my backyard. Well, you may have to travel a little bit, but you can have help with that.
That's right. We try to make that available. And again, we've always lived from distance. I know John Matthew lives, within about 30 minutes or so of practice, so he doesn't have as long to go, but it's still here in the metro area. And we, though, have always been at some distance. We lived in North Mississippi for a while and had to travel about 2.5 hours to practice. We've had some that gone about 3.5 is about the farthest that I know of. And now we've moved to South Mississippi, so we're closer. We only have an hour and a half.
For the parent or the grandparent who hears that, and it's like, man, that's an investment for basketball. But as a parent and then also the coach, what is that sacrifice worth?
So much. In not just basketball, not just putting a ball through a hoop and seeing a winning score on the scoreboard, the camaraderie that these kids learn from each other, the lessons that they learn from each other in how to handle day-to-day life, how they handle other kids looking at them differently, or how those conversations have gone down, how to handle their chair in a situation. We were thankful, I guess it was a couple of years ago now, that one of our other coaches, Lawrence Williams, he was there during a fire alarm at the Baptist Healthplex where the basketball court is on the second floor. And he got to teach some of our kids who were brave enough. Now, it was just an alarm. There wasn't an actual fire. We said, here's an opportunity to teach these kids. You can go down steps in your wheelchair. And
holy guacamole.
Yeah, and so he showed them how, and they've learned it. Now every time we turn around, we got kids trying to, can I go down the stairs? Because they've learned how. Last year, or a season ago, it wasn't last year, it was almost 2 years ago now, but we were given the opportunity to fly to Phoenix for a tournament. So our kids got to learn what it's like to have to navigate travel, how to get chairs from A to B and your luggage from one terminal to another, and all these extra steps that we take for granted as we walk around and do things. These opportunities to learn life skills,
build self-confidence, open up opportunities. Well, I mean, it's, you can easily get into one mindset when you think about children or adults who are differently abled. But I tell you what, Mr. Phillip and Mr. John Matthew, ain't nothing slowing you guys down. Y'all are just ripping and sort of roaring. So I know you're sad. Anybody who reaches that senior age, John Matthew, gets sad to see what they're going to leave behind in terms of sports. But, I mean, is there a next level for you? Do you see yourself at the Paralympics?
I'm hoping so. A couple colleges have been watching me. Hopefully I'll get some interest with them. I wish they had one in Mississippi, but it's all right.
So it's not, I mean, but there is, and I think that's too something to press into, is that even though they may be smaller or less opportunities, there's still opportunities that are growing out there for athletes with different abilities to go on and play at college or go on and be at the Olympics. So what do you say to that, Dwight?
I think it's great to see that these kids can have life goals. And I'm thankful for these two young men here and their outlook on life. But we have some kids, not necessarily personally with the Wheelcats, but that we see at tournaments and different places that you can tell without this sport, they wouldn't have the future to look forward to the way they do. And it has opened so many doors to, we talk about college sports, but it's not just that. They learn college education, and they learn life skills to work themselves into a career. And they get a college education to be a contributing force in society in so many ways. And so to me, seeing that in these kids is well worth a few Saturdays here and there, and putting into their lives and encouraging them as best I can and talking to them through difficult scenarios.
Phillip, it's always difficult to have Dad as coach. Is he different on the court?
He's not different on my brother, so. No.
So no, Dad is coach. Dad and coach are pretty much the same. Does he get frustrated too, like a lot of coaches do, if the Wheelcats don't listen?
He doesn't get frustrated. He yells at us, that way we can hear him.
Oh, I'm going to use that with I am yelling at you so you will hear me.
I love the fact that he actually quoted me. Now I can go, okay, you know what I'm saying. You've actually said what I've said.
Well, no, in fairness, in basketball, I mean, it's going up and down the court. You know what? I probably should have been asking those questions to John Matthew, and you do have to go home with coaching and sort of call him Dad. So, John Matthew, though, is this going to be your last year with the Wheelcats?
No, ma'am. I got one more year.
So you got one more.
This is my junior year.
So this is going to be your junior year, and you're already looking at college prospects. That's
Yes, ma'am.
That's pretty cool. What's on where would you want to go, or who's looking at you? Should we ask that way?
I don't know if I can say.
Make that big, make a big list.
Yeah.
So say make a big list. Stop. Okay, let's rephrase that. What are the options?
I don't really want to travel super far, but probably the furthest I'll go is Illinois. I definitely don't know if I want to go all the way to Nebraska, but I'm looking at Alabama or Auburn, really.
Oh, wow. You shouldn't have said that out loud at all.
Well, hopefully that'll prod some of those Mississippi schools along to get a program together.
Just Alabama or Auburn, just those fans right now listening to Good Things are starting to think of reasons why you should choose one over the other. But I think you should just choose to hang out with us because we got a little bit more with the Wheelcat FM. And if you want all the contest rules and regulations for the Mississippi Wheelcats, then just see Dwight. But we're not going to go through all of those today. I want to use the last bit of time here just to also continue to provide experience exposure, but then also talk about what that means for the sport. You mentioned it's a big deal that the Paralympics, which the two athletes that are joining us here on Good Things, Phillip, you're 12, John Matthews, 17. You're a little bit closer to the Paralympics than Phillip, but you'll just pave the way for him.
Yes,
and what it means for those to start to getting more exposure and actually be aired live on TV, what that does to inspire other athletes, other small towns to get these type of teams.
Well, it's that being able to be out there, it's just like our start in the sport, and even what John Matthews said earlier in his conversation with a cousin, it's that thing of you don't even know it's out there until you hear about it, and it's amazing how close you can be to a sport, to people who play it, and then have no idea it's there, and no idea that opportunity is there. And that's why we do. We want to keep playing. We want to. I love that we're in this social media age where we can put things out there as they're happening as quickly as possible, so that we can give another generation, another group of kids, an opportunity to know about this, learn from it, and then have that door open to whatever may be the thing that they end up doing for the rest of their life.
Well, John Matthew, your mother was planning out your next 10, 15, 20, 30 years during the break because she says you need to go to one of the schools close by home. We'll just put it that way. But go ahead and get your education and come back to Mississippi and be the first coach for a wheelchair basketball team at the collegiate level. How important, though, is it for coaches or for families or for opportunities like that to think about, hey, if it's not there, it doesn't mean that it can't be there, and to come back and do it? Would that interest you?
It would. It'd be definitely a challenge to do that, but I think it'd all be worth it.
I think you're up for any challenge that gets put in front of you, John Matthew. But there again, you can do whatever you want to be when you grow up. You don't have to be the whatever your mom wants you to be. But I think it sounds pretty cool. But I like that, though. It's just because it's not there doesn't mean it can't be there, right, Dwight? And so your family obviously got pulled into the Wheelcats because of Phillip, but this is an open opportunity for other people who are listening and sort of their families. So, Phillip, what would you say to maybe the kids that are parents who are listening to Good Things that are, I don't know if I want to get my child who's in a wheelchair into sports? Is it fun? Do you love it? Share with us why sports are important to you.
I would say just if you don't want to do it, at least try it. Like, if you don't want to do it, then try it and then see what happens.
Give yourself an opportunity to like it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Because is being a national champ fun?
Yes, ma'am.
What was that moment like?
Very exciting.
Very exciting. Did y'all get a ring or a trophy, or how does that work?
We have a plaque that we currently have waiting on the trophy.
Waiting on the trophy.
We're having an end of the year party for the team that we'll present that at. Underdog
scrappy Mississippi team had to pull together and then went all the way to the top to be national champs. But now, Phillip, you're going to have what they call a target on your back because you are the one to beat. Does that push you to be a better athlete for next year?
Yes, ma'am.
How does that feel, John Matthew, to know you have to now, you're the reigning national champ with basketball? I mean, is there any pressure there for you?
No, ma'am.
What about for you, Coach?
Yes. And I'll say this, not pressure on me, but you know how it is with kids. I mean, everybody likes to win. Mm-hmm. Everybody loves winning. And it is.
Never hated it.
It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling. Teaching kids that learning while you're competing is oftentimes the biggest victory. We want a trophy. We want to win. But anything you can take from this year and build and build and build to high school, college, Paralympics, your career and your family for the rest of your life, that's a great victory.
That is a great victory, and it would be, too, if you're interested. It's Mississippi, all spelled out, Wheelcats.com. If you'd like to learn more information, they're also on Facebook. You can find them there. Please tell them Good Things sent you. I'd love for another athlete to have the opportunity to take this journey with the Mississippi Wheelcats. But you guys stick with this. You got